Hey Emma, welcome to another episode of English Podcast Conversation. I'm so excited to have you here today. We're going to be talking about something that's super important for anyone learning English: how to build a strong foundation so you can become fluent. I know a lot of people feel overwhelmed when they start learning a new language, so I'm really glad we're tackling this topic. Where do you think we should start?
Hi, Alex. I'm so happy to be here too. You're absolutely right. So many people feel overwhelmed when they start learning English, and it's easy to see why. English has a huge vocabulary, tricky grammar rules, and so many exceptions to those rules. But I always tell people that the best place to start is with the basics: vocabulary and daily practice. Think of it like building a house. You can't have a strong, stable house without a solid foundation, right? Vocabulary and daily habits are that foundation for language learning.
That's such a great analogy. Vocabulary really is like the bricks of a language. Without enough words, it's hard to express yourself or understand others. But here's the thing. How do you suggest someone start building their vocabulary without feeling overwhelmed? I mean, English has so many words. It can feel like you're staring at a mountain and don't know where to begin.
That's such a great question, Alex. I always recommend starting small. Instead of trying to learn 50 words in one day, focus on just 5 to 10 new words a day. It might not sound like a lot, but over time, it adds up. And there are so many tools to help with this. Apps like Duolingo, Memories, or Anki are fantastic. Or, if you're old school like me, you can just use a notebook. The key is consistency. Make it a daily habit, like brushing your teeth. If you learn 5 words a day, that's 35 words a week, 150 words a month, and over 1,800 words in a year. That's a huge vocabulary boost.
I love that. Breaking it down into small, manageable steps makes it feel so much more achievable. And you're so right about consistency. It's not about how many words you learn in a day, it's about how well you remember them. I also think it's super important to learn words in context. For example, if you're learning the word delicious, don't just memorize the definition. Think about a time you ate something amazing, like your favorite dessert, and say, "This cake is delicious." That way, the word sticks because it's tied to a real experience.
Yes, exactly. Context is everything. When you learn a word in isolation, it's easy to forget it. But when you connect it to a memory, a feeling, or a situation, it becomes much more meaningful. And speaking of context, one of my favorite ways to learn new words is by watching TV shows, movies, or even listening to podcasts in English. You get to hear how native speakers use words naturally in conversations. Plus, it's fun. You're not just sitting there with a textbook. You're enjoying yourself while learning.
Totally. I'm a huge fan of using entertainment to learn. It doesn't even feel like studying, but you're absorbing so much. For example, if you're watching a show like Friends, you'll hear casual, everyday English that you might not find in a textbook. And you can pause, write down new words, and look them up later. It's a win-win. Plus, you get to see how words are used in different situations, like how someone might say, "I'm starving," when they're really hungry, even though starving technically means something much more extreme.
Absolutely. And another thing I love about using TV shows or podcasts is that you get used to different accents and speeds of speaking. That's such an important part of becoming fluent. English is spoken so differently depending on where you are: British English, American English, Australian English, and even within those, there are so many regional accents. By listening to a variety of speakers, you train your ear to understand different ways of speaking.
That's such a good point. And it's not just about accents, it's also about the speed of speaking. Native speakers often talk really fast, And that can be intimidating for learners. But the more you listen, the more you'll get used to it. It's like training your brain to keep up. But let's talk about daily practice. How can someone make English a part of their everyday life? Because, let's be honest, not everyone has hours to study every day.
That's so true. Life gets busy, and not everyone can dedicate hours to studying. But the good news is, you don't have to. There are so many small, simple ways to practice English every day. For example, you can start by labeling things around your house in English. Put a sticky note on your fridge that says refrigerator or on your mirror that says mirror. Every time you see it, you'll reinforce the word in your mind. It's a simple trick, but it really works.
I love that idea. It's such an easy way to immerse yourself in the language without even leaving your house. Another thing I recommend is trying to think in English for 5 minutes a day. It might feel weird at first, especially if you're used to thinking in your native language, but it really helps. For example, while you're making breakfast, you can think, I'm pouring milk into my coffee. The coffee smells amazing. It's a simple way to practice forming sentences in your head.
That's such a great tip. Thinking in English is a game changer because it helps you get comfortable with the language on a deeper level. And you don't have to limit it to 5 minutes. You can gradually increase the time as you get more comfortable. Another thing I recommend is talking to yourself in English. I know it sounds funny, but it's such a great way to practice speaking, especially if you don't have someone to talk to.
I do that all the time. Sometimes I even narrate what I'm doing, like, okay, now I'm chopping the vegetables. The onions are making my eyes water. It sounds silly, but it's such a great way to practice speaking, even if you don't have a conversation partner. And the more you do it, the more natural it feels.
Exactly. Speaking is such an important part of fluency, and a lot of people feel nervous about it. But the truth is, you don't need a conversation partner to practice speaking. You can talk to yourself, describe what you're doing, or even record yourself speaking and listen back to see how you sound. It's all about building confidence.
That's such a good point. Recording yourself is a great way to track your progress too. You might not notice improvements right away, but if you listen back after a few weeks or months, you'll be amazed at how much better you sound. And don't forget about writing. Keeping a journal in English is another fantastic way to practice. You don't have to write a novel, just a few sentences every day about what you did, how you feel, or what you're planning to do. It's a great way to practice grammar and vocabulary together.
Yes, journaling is such a powerful tool. And the best part is, it's private. You don't have to worry about anyone judging your mistakes. Speaking of mistakes, I think it's really important to remind people that it's okay to make them. Mistakes are how we learn. No one expects you to be perfect, especially when you're just starting out.
Absolutely, fluency isn't about being perfect. It's about being able to communicate. Even native speakers make mistakes sometimes. The important thing is to keep going and not let fear hold you back. Every mistake is a learning opportunity.
Well said, Alex. So, to wrap up this episode, let's give our listeners a quick challenge. Here's what I want you to do. Learn 5 new words today and use them in sentences. And try thinking in English for 5 minutes. It doesn't have to be complicated. Just describe what you're doing or how you're feeling. You've got this.
Love it. Small, manageable steps are the way to go. Thanks for joining me, Emma. I can't wait for our next episode where we'll dive into speaking and pronunciation. Until then, keep practicing and stay curious.
See you next time, Alex. Bye, everyone.